Welcome to Beacon Bits. I'm Serge, and as always, joined by my co-host, Yves. Yves, I don't know if you heard, but I'm heading to your part of the world in August, and I want to play some golf because I know how competitive you are. We'll play some ping pong again, and I'm pretty sure I beat you again. I'm just trying to remember, but I'm 99% sure I beat you at both those sports. Do you want a rematch?
So have some issues with your memory.
Do you
Yeah, because
think?
I don't. Yeah. I'm pretty sure you did not beat me once at ping pong. Me and then golf. I don't remember because I don't think we played against. We played as teams, so we did scrambles. So I'm not. I don't think. Yeah, maybe, but yeah, I am very competitive, so I'm down. So let's do it. Just so
Let's
you know,
do it.
though, I only started golfing during the pandemic, like a lot of people, and my best round ever is 94. So it's not great. But this past weekend, I shot 40 on the back nine. So meaning that if I had not shot 56 on the front nine,
I was going to ask. What did you shoot on the
I would
front
have the
nine?
best round of my
72?
life. But I feel that I can break 90 this year. But yes, I'm down. Let's do it. We'll put something on the line too, because that makes it always makes it more fun.
It does make it more fun. I don't think I've ever broken 100. I think I broke 100 once, but similar to you, golfing is not a sport that I've played a lot, but it's a sport that I love. So I do want to play, and I'm ultra competitive. And I think if there's something on the line, even if it's just bragging rights against you, I'll do really, really well. So let's see.
You don't need more reasons to brag, so we'll figure something out.
All right, let's do it. So we've got a lot to cover, and it's been a really busy time in HR and the world of work news. And one that's recently hit and has made some inroads everywhere is Greece has introduced a 6-day work week. And when I first saw the headline, I'm like, oh, holy cow, how are they going to do that? Everyone's going to work 6 days? That's going to cause a revolution. But when you dig in a little bit deeper, it gives you a lot more insight. So let me give you the highlights and would love to get your thoughts here. So Greek workers began working 48-hour weeks starting Monday as part of a new labor law. So last week they started this, but it's not everyone. So specifically, workers can be compelled by their employers to work for a 6-day in exchange for an additional 40% of their daily wage. So This is not force in any way. I just want to make that clear. Also, what I thought was interesting is employees will also be allowed to have a second part-time job and work up to 13 hours per day, meaning they can clock between 65 and 78 hours per week. I was trying to figure out why they would do this, and there's many factors that I'm thinking, and obviously we've been reading about the economy in Greece for years of the challenges they have. And my first gut instinct is this just productivity? It's a challenge. Why are they doing that?
Just two things. I think there's a skill shortages as well.
Yeah.
So finding they essentially can't find people for certain types of roles that they're trying to fill. And the other one is productivity. Although Greece's productivity, we'll talk a little bit about that more later, but their productivity per hour worked on their, as far as how it impacts their GDP is not terrible. It's not actually that far off from Canada, actually. But I'm not sure if that's the solution. So instead of trying to find people for roles they can't fill, they're hopefully trying to make up the gap by having people put in more hours. I do think that the media kind of blew it in a little bit out of proportion in some ways because it's not forced on anyone. It does create some concerns for me regardless, not personally for me, but in general, like in terms of as an employer, if you have the option of having someone work an extra day a week to increase productivity, obviously you're going to encourage that if you're in a position to do it, because there's a cost associated to doing that as well to the employers to essentially pay 40% premium on those hours. There were some other things that I didn't really like in there as well. Like I think you could be called in to go to work within 24 hours as long as you get a 24-hour notice.
Yeah.
It just doesn't leave a lot of room for people to and I know work-life balance is can be a little fluffy for some people, but it's still to me important for people to have separation of work and personal lives. So I feel like it overreaches like whether it's 6 days a week, maybe you're going to work 5 days and then you get called in on Sunday, or you get asked to go in on Sunday. So you're always feeling a little bit of that pressure, that
Yeah.
stress that you might get called in at any point. But for people trying to make extra income and working at companies that can afford to pay that 40%, maybe it's win-win. It's headline catching. So obviously, being the first country in the EU to go with a six day work week, when a lot of conversations have been going the other way in recent years.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you think about Europe, my stereotype is, well, they work 3 days, 4 days, maybe half days, right? It's just a lot more laid back when it comes to work, is the impression or the stereotype that's been.
Hey, I will make sure. I want to put a disclaimer that your opinions are your opinions alone, and that I don't necessarily share all opinions.
No, I'm not saying it's bad. I think it's what I love about that culture, right? It's a lot more laid back when it comes to work, or at least it's what we hear here in North America. It's against the discussions that we've been having here in Canada and multiple countries of trying to bring the work week to 4 days a week. Then there's the discussion on AI, right? Everyone is supposedly a lot more efficient, and we're going to get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a misconception that more time at work means the companies are going to be more productive. I mean, there's probably some element of that can impact productivity, but I was looking at some of the data, and so I looked at two separate graphs. One was the countries who have the highest average work weeks in terms of hours. And so, interestingly enough, is the United Arab Emirates. So we'll go with UAE for the rest of this podcast. So UAE has the second most hours worked on average per week at around 53 hours, I believe, a week, which is a lot. But if you look at the GDP per hour worked, Greece and the UAE are literally side by side at $42. For comparison's sakes, Canada is currently at $53 GDP per hour worked. Denmark 78, Switzerland 75. So Canada and the United States are lagging, and obviously Greece and many other countries are lagging even more. But I don't know if this is going to have much of an impact on the GDP. I guess we'll know maybe in a year or two from now whether it's really made much of a difference. But it might actually attract people. If you're in debts and you're trying to maybe, like, if you can work at a company that's willing to offer a 6-day work week with a 40% premium on that extra day, you might be compelled to actually look at some of those opportunities to fast track some of your financial recovery or put yourself in a better financial position. So it might actually, it'll be interesting to see, and maybe other countries will follow suit. Obviously, the Canadian media outlets, because Canada is not necessarily doing so well on the productivity side of front of things right now, they were asking, is Canada next?
It's actually kind of shocking how low our productivity is here in Canada. It's like it almost compares to Greece and other countries, but I just don't see it happening. And I think what's happened in Canada to really, for the skill gap shortage, and we can argue if that's helped or not, we have brought in 3 million people in the last 3 years, right? So, and that's hopefully to cover that gap of an aging population, which I think Greece might be. How old is their population? What is actually the skill and labor gap? And it's substantial. But what you're saying here, as far as would it attract more workers? Yes, it's quite possible, because the migration in between countries that are in the European Union is very, very easy. So someone in Spain, someone in France that, exactly to your point, wants to make more money, well, why not move to Greece? This is a good opportunity for them, right?
Yeah.
That's a good question when it comes to why are we lagging in Canada and what's the solution? So I'm going to put you right on the spot.
I think there's just a lack of competitiveness in Canada in general. I don't want to turn this into a political debate with all the changes that have been happening recently, with everything from the capital gain exceptions, and then you're already seeing a bit of an exodus in the tech industry from that alone. So that's not going to help us be more competitive. It's going to definitely make some challenges in terms of companies being able to attract investments. And we talk like this is not just a technology or an IT thing. This impacts literally all the industries. But I think in Canada in general, we lack a bit of competitiveness, and competition is good for productivity. It lights a fire under people, it lights a fire under these organizations that are. But there's a lot of monopolies. There's a lot of certain industries that are essentially owned by 2 or 3 companies in Canada, and then there's not a whole lot of room for new incumbents to join. So I'm not an expert, but to me the solution is always competition. I think competition always brings out the best in people, best in organizations, and if you become complacent because you have essentially the majority of the market shares of whatever industry or verticals that you're in, then you lack the drive for innovation, you lack the drive for R&D, because you're no longer in a race. You essentially won the race. So that's my solution, is more competition.
I hate to say you might be right, because I don't have a better solution. So talking about 6-day work week, and I think the discussion across the world has been a 4-day work week. Mm-hmm. Do you see a world where, let's say in Canada, that we would go to a 4-day work week?
I don't know if it'll be like a legislative thing. I do see a lot of companies that could probably go down that road. I already know a couple of them in Canada that have a 4th or at least a Friday afternoon 4.5 day. And there's also other countries they do have a 4-day model, but they have 10-hour days.
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily like less hours work, but they're just more condensed over 4 days. And I don't know if Canada's going to be in a position to be able to. I don't see it happening in my lifetime as a whole, but I think there'll be companies that might lead the charge there. And if these companies that do really well continue to do really well, or even better because of these changes, and obviously it's going to make it a little bit more. But there's all kinds of challenges with going to a 4-day work week. There's supply chains, there's organization. You have to essentially be where your customers are when they are available. And so if you're working 4-day work weeks and the rest of your competitors are not, it's going to be tough. It's almost like it has to be universally agreed upon in some ways. When I was young, I remember I used to do 4 days on, 4 days off, working as an apprentice mechanic. Worked for me. I'm not sure if everyone would be a fan of that, but I know I have friends who work 10, 12-hour days, and then they're off for 4 days, and then they're totally fine with it. There's all kinds of different models out there, but I don't think it's one size fits all.
Yeah, if we think about the 4-day work week, it's very targeted to the white collar knowledge worker, because in reality, to your point, you still have to have stores open. You still need to ship stuff. You still need to run restaurants. So it's not completely fair to say, hey, we're going to go to 4-day work week. I think it makes sense for companies if they're that efficient and productive, and they don't feel they see it as a competitive advantage when it comes to the talent they can attract and acquire. Like it's been tried in many, many countries. And I was just doing some research on, okay, who has 4-day work week? And in reality, not many do. But there is examples of countries that is definitely less than 40 hours. Because I was looking at Germany, and we always look at Germany as far as extremely efficient, really good quality work across the board. And they did a pilot project involving 45 companies to test a 4-day work week. They didn't stick with it, but the interesting is their average work week in Germany is 34.2 hours, which is one of the shortest in the world. But then I want to see like what other countries that are similar to us. In the UK recently, and I remember reading a lot about this, if it worked or not, the UK ran a 6-month trial involving 61 companies. And most of those companies decided to keep it. I think the one that we've heard the most about is Iceland. Iceland did a large pilot working 35 to 36 hours between 2015 and 2019. And overall, that's where they've stayed. It's not like across the board 4-day work week, but the majority are working 4-day work week. So this is where I think the headline was total clickbait for the 6-day work week, because the whole world has been talking about 4-day work weeks. This is what the trend, this is what I would say a lot of workers want.
Yep.
but that doesn't mean it's always the reality. So I know at Career Beacon, you have Fridays in the summer, it's Friday afternoon off. Do you know, is it more productive? Like, what is your thought around doing that?
I mean, we're not big enough that I would say that we measure productivity at that level. Obviously, general employee sentiment is probably higher because of it. But the summers are so short, especially here in Atlantic Canada. Like we basically get like 3 months of full on summer. So for us, we just wanted to. We know a lot of times people take their vacation in the summer to spend a little bit more time. They do things like camping. So we just wanted to ended like around 1 p.m., 12 to 1 p.m. on Fridays. That way, if someone wants to head out for the weekend for a camping trip, then they're not traveling at 8 p.m. at night. It's interesting because Ben and I had a conversation about this like 2 weeks ago because we were like, okay, well, market conditions are a bit soft right now. So we're doing, we were doing okay Career Beacon, but we're not necessarily like killing it. And we're like, do we still do it? And our thought process was, yeah, we should still do it because if a company's success is dependent on whether someone takes a half day off on Fridays for a few weeks during the summer or not, then I think we got bigger issues to worry about. And the other side of it too is that we see companies do it in the winter as well, because a lot of people suffer from seasonal depression, which is a real thing. And so we've seen people that do half days during the winter because they know that it's actually a harder time for a lot of their employees. They'll add like an extra holiday or a couple of extra holidays baked in the winter. So there's companies experimenting with it. And I think it's just trying to find that right balance for what works for you as an organization. So for us, it's been something we've done for about 10 years now. We did that.
Oh, really?
This is not something new. We've been doing the half day Fridays in the summer for pretty much since the inception of the company.
I'll tell you, it was something that I really enjoyed, right? It's like, Fridays, I think I was more productive and efficient on that day because I wanted to get everything out in that 4 to 5 hour time frame. So I didn't have to felt guilt over the weekend or on the Friday afternoon that there was work that wasn't completed. So in some ways, I don't think it would affect actual deliverables or how productive employees are.
You think about like when you go on vacation. If you're like me, your most productive time is like the week or two that before you go on vacation, because you want to like just kind of have a clear headspace. Like that 4.5 days leading up to it, hopefully you're putting your best foot forward and then getting like as much work done so you can enjoy that extra perk essentially, or else you're just going to go and think about work and not really enjoy the time with family and friends.
You're right. You're 100% right. The most productive days that I have is the 2 days before vacation. The amount of work, I should take a vacation every week. So just work 2 days and I'll get a ton of work done in that time frame. There is a lot of changes that are happening in the world of work, how we approach it. And obviously on the knowledge worker side, it's going to change even more dramatically in the next 5 years. I'm just thinking like admin work, like things that take a lot of time during the week, that are not really productive and technology can take over. I think we're going to see a case in the next 5 to 10 years that you'll be able to get your work done in 25 to 30 hours. But it doesn't mean we need to shorten the work week. It's just you can increase how productive you are and how much you deliver as well. But what's really interesting to me, and I would take this in a heartbeat for any company that would offer this instead of a 5-day, 8-hour work week. If you said to me, work 10 hours a day for 4 days, I would jump at that. And I'm curious why more companies don't do that. Obviously, like, let's discount the companies that are retail, like all of those, but like knowledge worker jobs or even trades.
Yeah, I mean, some of them have it. I completely agree. I think a lot of people would take the 4 days, 10-hour days, and then if it means you get 3 full days off, because it doesn't add a whole lot. And I mean, the only I can't speak because I don't have any kids, so I guess the only thing that I can't really attest to is whether families would be able to make that work, because obviously there's other challenges that goes when you have young children at home. Working 10-hour days, especially if you add a commute to that on top of like your work hours, I'm not sure if that's necessarily going to work for a lot of people out there.
No, the other consideration I have, it's really clear, and there's surveys out there. There is a ton showing that workers definitely prefer a 4-day work week. So there
Yeah.
was a survey in the US that 92% of US workers favor a 4-day work week. In Canada, Indeed found that 51% of large companies are considering alternative schedules. I think those discussions are going to keep happening, but here's my take: is it's not going to happen anytime soon, especially now. It's definitely in Canada, and I think we're seeing across the world. It's definitely shifted from an employee market to an employer market.
Yeah.
When and if it shifts, and it will, it always does. I think this is where companies are going to look at competitive advantages when it comes to trying to attract talent. I don't see the marketplace changing dramatically in the next 2 years that we're going to start seeing all these companies adopting 4-day work week. I just don't see it. I think you got to be forced into it, and competition for talent is going to be the main driver of it eventually.
I agree. Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I still feel like if companies like spend a little bit of time trying to figure out what kind of flexibility they can offer to their employees, there's got to be, even for every type of business, there's got to be something that you can offer within your own industry that you'd still be able to operate efficiently, but give some freedom and flexibility to your team. So I don't know that it needs to be a 4-day work week if you have things like, half day Fridays in the summer, or extra days off in the winter, but there's all kinds of other things, like even we talk about this a lot just in terms of employee perks, helping employees be able to facilitate experiences or travel or do other things. So that's all part of creating a flexible work environment, not just whether you're working 4 or 5 days a week. If you're in a position to find that balance, then you're going to attract the right type of person that you want for your team.
No, I agree. I think flexibility is the key, especially if you look at families. And it's like there's a lot of data around women. It's been a challenge for women to get back in the workforce after the pandemic, and because of childcare and the flexibility of moving and being in a family of 3 young kids. Without flexibility, it'd be really, really tough for us to make it work. And just because, like, you've got daycare, you've got these camps, you've got all of this stuff, right?
You got dogs in the office, which vote in. So that's also part of flexibility, is having dogs at work.
There you go.
Hello. Hello.
I hope you're paying him, because I'm not sure he's working really hard.
No, he's not. He's not. He's working hard on my mood.
Yes. So great discussion around 6-day work week. It's pretty clear that they're trying to fill a labor skill gap, and this is the way, their solution to do it. So for everyone to think, hey, they're going to 6-day work week, or we're going to 4-day work week. So my prediction is nothing changes in the next couple of years. I think we will see it as we move forward and we see how AI evolves how we do work. But outside of that, pure clickbait, but I think it's an interesting topic to talk about.
Hey, at least they're testing it, so we'll find out from other people going through it instead of us having to go through it. But yeah.
Exactly.
We'll
on that note, another episode of Beacon Bits.
Does that mean we're going to stick around now? Because that's episode number 7.
It is episode number 7, and the stats are pretty clear. 98% of podcasts don't go past episode 6. We've hit 7, and I'll tell you, Yves, if you're up for it, there's no stopping. We're going to do hundreds of these.
I'm totally up for it. Are we, how close are we to 1 million listeners?
Very close.
You don't need to answer that question.
Very close. We're getting there. So there's one thing we ask. If you're enjoying this podcast, please share it with other people that might enjoy this content. So on that note, Yves, that's it. That's the 7th episode of Beacon Bits.